Hey everybody, it's your feedback guy, Jeremy Greer, and I'm here to introduce our feedback episode and to remind you that going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv is the coolest thing you can do besides sending daysoffuturecast.com some feedback every once in a while. Thank you everybody who submitted questions. We have a kind of a lengthy conversation about video games and trailers, all X-Men related, before we get into those. So I'm not going to keep you up any further. Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Bye. I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast. And today we're going to be answering all of your questions in a long-awaited feedback episode covering like 18,000 hours of this podcast. Because we kept just kicking it out just a little bit longer each time. We have questions about Days of Future Past, the movie that we covered a long, long time ago. We have some questions about the Avengers, as people like to call them. I don't know if you've seen that, but people like to call it that. As well as just a scattering of other stuff. But Gary, I don't know when this podcast will go out, but I wanted to talk to you about the X-Men movie trailer that came out.
Yeah, let's talk about it. They released a new trailer for X-Men Phoenix, and I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think it also looks good. It makes me question like why they keep going back to the Phoenix well. And we had this conversation in Slack with some other people in the Duckfeed Slack, and I realize it's like a tentpole story for the X-Men, but I was thinking back after I watched it, and after we had that conversation, I kind of went back and watched it again, and boy, does it seem like it's exactly X-Men 3. Like it's real similar, man.
Here's the thing. Well, here's two things. One, I haven't been recording my side of this conversation so far.
That's fine. I
forgot it was we can use the backup.
Yeah, no problem.
Because I was exporting the Deadpool episode and forgot. So do you want me to start recording now or no?
Yeah, go ahead and start recording. Yeah, because what'll happen is like you'll say that, and then all of a sudden your voice will get a lot better. So
that sounds pretty fun. So I'm not recording now. I saw that conversation in Slack. I don't totally agree because I don't think so. One thing is like, they do, keep going back to the well. There's a cartoon version of it, and there's X-Men 3. And X-Men 3 was such a weird, misguided afterthought that was tacked on to a movie about the cure. That having a movie that focuses on it makes perfect sense to me. Like, I don't think they've actually done it, really. They've never devoted a movie to it. They've never focused on it. So I think a movie that actually focuses on it is smart and good, actually.
I almost wish that this... And I know they hinted at some of this, and it's been a while since I've seen Apocalypse, so I'm going to have to go back and see it. I know they did some hints about the Phoenix stuff, but I almost wish that we could get, if they reboot this series for the MCU or for a brand new series or whatever, it very much feels like this is the last hurrah. Like when you start playing The Doors, This Is the End over your trailer,
sure.
Like it makes me think that this is the last movie you're going to make. But I almost wish they would develop Jean as Phoenix like throughout a movie trilogy, and then you end up with the Dark Phoenix villain at the end, as opposed to just being like, Jean's here, now she's bad, which is what it seems like.
They foreshadow it in Apocalypse a little bit, like actually, quite a bit actually. Like it's a big part of the ending, of that movie. I think that difference is the difference between the way that the MCU movies have worked and the X-Men movies have worked is that the X-Men movies, and successfully, or not, depending on which one, they've decided to take each entry and focus on an aspect of like the essential X-Men conflict rather than concentrating on the characters. So that's why you get like Jean Grey, who's not a major character in Apocalypse or anything. She's still, Sophie Turner doesn't have a big part. It's weird. It's weird that she's going to be the focus of this new movie, given that she has not been given that much screen time or that much development time. Like, they chose to go a different direction with it. I don't know if that's a good direction. They just decided not to do that, where the Avengers, have a consistent threat throughout all of them. It's all just aspects of Thanos, pretty much. It's all aspects of these gems, and just do character work. They're better movies. And it would be cool if the X-Men did that for sure. It's just, they kind of just didn't. It's kind of too late.
And now that we've had two, I would say two extremely successful series of movies based on the X-Men, like when the if they go into the MCU, it's going to be really hard for me to care about like a rebooted Charles Xavier, like putting the school together or whatever. Like I don't know. The onboarding of that franchise into that universe is going to be very weird to me.
It's super dicey. So that's the thing, is as much as I don't agree with everybody saying like stop doing the Phoenix story, because to my mind they haven't done it. I don't agree with that. If they do it again, fuck you. You know, like any of this stuff that gets repeated once it's in the MCU, I'm not here for it. I don't want to see the origins. I don't want to see Charles Xavier putting together the team. They have to come up with a way that allows us to bypass that in a credits montage, essentially, and get to an actual new story. Like this is my last bit of patience for doing these kind of classic X-Men stories. Like
and
that.
I think my concern about that is having what has made the MCU good, as you just mentioned, is the characters, and the way that they made those characters good was kind of scatter them out through so many movies. So by the time you get to Infinity War, you care about the Scarlet Witch a little bit. You don't really care about her shitty Russian accent, but you do care about her a little bit. Like she hasn't had her own movie, but she has had character development over the course of several movies. Same thing with Thor or Hulk or any of those guys that they've had their own movies, but you don't have to explain who Iron Man is or who Samuel L. Jackson is or who Thor is by the time you get to Infinity War. But you can't. It's also going to be really tough to go back to that, like unless they start with a really small scale. And I don't like. I see people ask. Yeah, it's just going to be weird, man. It's going to be.
I think they will do that. I think that at the end of the Infinity Wars, like when we're at the end of Phase 1 or whatever, we're going to have a pretty big deck clearing. You know, I think a lot of people are going to retire or die in that, and they will start focusing on these tertiary things that they have. You know, X-Men stuff being, and I think Fantastic Four is still on the table, is being folded back in. And they'll do those as personal individual movies to kind of build that up again. I think that they will start up with Phase 2 as like, or no, they're in Phase 3 now or whatever, but they'll start as the new, this is the climax of those phases. I think they'll start over with a brand new, because I understand the skepticism that they'll do that. It's made them tons of money. Like, I don't think they're going to fuck with the formula at this point. And that's the thing that works. It's the thing that you see if they don't do that. If, when they don't do that, you get the DC extended universe, which is just a trash fire. Like, they know that this is how they make money. So I don't think they're going to forget how to make movies. They're not going to all of a sudden just like, oh, we don't understand how to put together this big ensemble. I think they'll still get it. As an X-Men fan though, I just don't want to see the same stories again. Like, I'm here for like a Magneto solo movie at this point, and that being how that character is introduced. Do one of the stories that happened after 1975 that they haven't touched.
Yeah.
Like there's 40 years of X-Men history that just has been unremarked upon in the movies pretty much. And that's what I'm kind of disappointed in. That's the thing that's so frustrating to me about X-Men 3 is that like if there was no Phoenix shit in that, they would be drawing on a modern story in a way that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that.
It's I wonder if with Fantastic Four on the table and with Marvel and with the MCU going cosmic in kind of a real big way, and we're about to get this Captain Marvel movie, which is going to be very heavy into the Skrulls and all this other stuff. I wonder if they'll just go with the Fantastic Four and just put the X-Men on the back burner for a while, because we've had there is such a thing as franchise fatigue. Like we've seen that with Batman movies and Superman movies. Like there's after 4 mainstream X-Men movies and 2 Deadpool kind of in between X-Men movies, like maybe just be like, okay, hey, they're Phase 7. We're going to start bringing mutants in Phase 7, like in 2025 or something. Like I wonder if they're just relaxed on it for a while.
They might. I could also see the fact that like previous to when they all met in Infinity War, the MCU was kind of split up into kind of cosmic and Earth stuff. They had a way the Guardians of the Galaxy were sequestered, and didn't interact with things. If they concentrate on the Fantastic Four and they are doing these other dimensions and stuff, that's a way of sequestering it as well. And I don't think we're going to get. I mean, we're obviously going to get like a Black Panther 2. Some of those franchises are going to be continued, but I don't think there's going to be a focus. Like, I don't think we're going to get a new Captain America movie or a new Thor movie or a new Iron Man movie. Like, there's going to be space to do some Earth level stuff there. And, some of that will be just, I think, like other Avengers. I wouldn't be surprised if we got like a Winter Soldier movie, which I'm not here for, like a Bucky movie. And I think Bucky is not very good in those movies.
What if it was a Bucky Black Panther movie, a Bucky Panther movie, if you will?
Oh, a Buck Panther. Like the
and the adventures of the 21st century.
Buck Panther. I don't really want a Buck Panther movie either. I just want Black Panther. But like I think there's room for it. These things have. It was 10 years was the amount of time they're working with. If they're going to be major, I think that the X-Men stuff would have to start being introduced soon, and I think they'll do that when they do it. It will just be hopefully it's soon and slow. Like we're going to get some equivalents of Captain America 1 and Thor 1, hopefully for individual characters. Like I think the worst thing they could do is start with an ensemble with the X-Men.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll start seeing mutants pop up in individual movies, and then them gathering into the folds of the Avengers, and then having that classic Avengers versus X-Men schism, right? And
that would be really cool.
Even though in the comics, like that doesn't really play out that way, but having that schism of the mutants versus the mutants versus the mutants versus the Avengers, like in some having to sign the Slovakian Accords kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah, I would be down for that, and I think that bringing the mutants in is not actually going to be that difficult. Like they have had two, they had Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, who they didn't really explain how they got their powers. They said, like they're special and they've been kind of engineered or whatever. Expanding the scope of that program kind of solves it. The people who were involved in that program, do a before credit scene that shows that program all throughout the 60s. Their people came home where they had some kind of radiation. It spread to people in their town who then traveled, and it spread, and people who had those kids turned out to be mutants, from this knock-on effect from that. Like untie it from nuclear war and tie it into super science and still make it something you're either born with or you're not. Some people carry the gene, some people don't.
So I want to change the subject a little bit. And something that came up on Twitter the other day with some Days of Future Cast listeners was the ideal X-Men movie, or excuse me, X-Men video game. I don't quite remember. I think it was somebody had said hearing you guys talk about Spider-Man, I really want an X-Men game. I think that might have been Patches, but it just kind of got picked up from there. Mai said something like almost like a Life is Strange kind of take on a X-Men game would be pretty good, and I'm kind of here for that. Like I think a really strong narrative story where you can experiment with powers without it being like a arcade game, almost like the previous X-Men stuff has always been, would be really interesting. What are your thoughts? Where are you at on a new X-Men game right now?
Like I would play that. It wouldn't be my first choice, but like I would definitely play that. I think that like what would happen then is anytime somebody did, there were dramatic scenes that involved like cool powers or fighting or something like that, it would be mechanically like a quick time event of some time, which is kind of annoying to me. Like, but I like the interior lives. I like the school shit. So I think that would be really fun. I think like the dream thing for me would be something that where what the X-Men games have done a lot in the past have like really limited what your powers are. They're not very expressive, I would want it to be a thing where it was like very physics based, and very free form, like if you are playing, and they would have to limit the cast for that, but like, play a game where it is, a city, and if you're Nightcrawler, you have Dishonored teleport powers and you get around that way. And if you are Wolverine, most things can be destroyed. Like you can cut struts in masonry and shit like that to like solve problems in creative ways. Like I would want them to try to capture the like doing cool things with your powers that are not the most obvious thing.
So have like scenarios set up that you can approach from different angles depending on which power set, which character you are. Basically,
I have like a city, like have a block or a building or something like that has and again you'd have to limit it. It could be like Iceman, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine or something like that. Or Jean Grey's tough because she has Phoenix level powers, and telekinesis is been rough in games. Like doing it now, I think it would be tough. In PS2 era, there's a couple games that do it well, but it's like for the PS2 era. But give people like that and just have it so you can just kind of solve problems. And it could be, you could still have that talking element. Like you could have X-Men come up and do kind of politicking and stuff like that too. But as much, again, we talk about this a lot, as much as it makes me kind of basic, like I like superpowers and I would not want to give those up. And a Life is Strange for X-Men would throw that away. Like it wouldn't be a part of the game. It'd be a part of the game, like emotionally, like it'd be like, what does it feel like to have this? But you wouldn't be able to do cool things with it. Like your avatar would do cool things with it, and you would tap a button.
Gotcha.
To make it happen. And and it would be very linear. Like those games are extremely linear. They have like big major choices that move the narrative, but as far as like an individual moment, like something would happen, you'd have a prompt, like a building would be falling, and you could either dive to help somebody else, or your powers could manifest. And one of them would be you do one quick time event, the other one you do one other quick time event. But the bounding box of what can happen in those games is like pretty small. There's no emergent stuff, I think.
So essentially just Dishonored, but with different X-Men is what you're looking for. I want multiple Dishonored levels, but that I can approach from different X-Men that all have different powers and complete them in different ways.
I think that would be super cool. And I would play the Life is Strange one. Like I love the kid X-Men, and I love that conflict part too. I just also want to be able to do cool shit with powers.
I'm just imagining Cyclops filibustering his way past a checkpoint where Nightcrawler just teleports.
Yeah.
Iceman just does his ice slide. Storm chants about the weather for a little while, and people get bored and leave the checkpoint.
If you didn't do if you didn't do Jean Grey, like Emma Frost would be really great for it. Because like you can do mind control in games. Like there's been stuff like that. That'd be really neat, and that's a play space that you could examine. Like you either take over the bodies of people and get their kind of abilities to bypass this stuff, or you can do like suggestions to them to do certain things to move them in kind of like a stealth way, or even turn people against each other in fights and shit. Like, I think there's just a lot of potential there for like a really expressive gameplay. And like I like the Life is Strange games, but they don't have expressive gameplay.
No, I get it. It's a choice between, do you want to have a strongly narrative game versus a game that's more focused on mechanics, and you can incorporate elements of both into the other, but it's kind of like what your design decision is at the beginning.
Yeah, what the basis, what the focus is. And the kind of narrative Life is Strange style games like are so limited in what the mechanical side of them. Like there are mechanics, like making story choices and making dialogue choices are a mechanic, but it's very pedestrian. The kind of mechanics in it, I guess. That makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I want to play both those games. Make them both. It's a shame that we haven't had a good X-Men game in forever.
I was trying to remember, I guess it's the Legends games, right? Or the Ultimate Alliance games or whatever. Like, and that's Ultimate Alliance leans on so much of the other Marvel universe that you can't really even, like, it's an X-Men Legends game with a different coat of paint on it. So
yeah, it's like X-Men Legends 2, and then the Wolverine Origins game has a pretty good reputation and is pretty much a God of War clone. But it's fun. Like you do fun shit at.
Apparently there's a Captain America skinned version of that too. Not skinned, but like there's a Captain America game that has like kind of this a similar. I remember those kind of coming out around the same time of each other, but that was all in that like Xbox 360 like single or double A kind of games. They were just kind of pushing out there. I need to go back and check those out. I wonder if they're backwards compatible now.
My buddy Derek streamed the beginning of that X-Men 3 game only to me. That Wolverine game. Like I just screen shared because I wanted to see the beginning of it. And he's like, "Let's hang out for an evening. I'll play this video game. And you can just watch and hang out." And that's what I did. And watched him play the beginning of that Wolverine game.
I think that happens a lot more than you would actually think. Like I've been kind of tangentially on the side of like people streaming themselves watching Parks and Rec or something, so that everyone could watch an episode of Parks and Rec together. So I think that kind of stuff happens a lot more than you would think.
I'm way into it. I'm way more into that than like an actual traditional streaming thing. Like if I just know everybody involved, like that's way more fun for me than strangers.
Yeah. That's the difference between having like 20 something people watching your stream or having 10,000 people watching your stream. Like it's always a little weird when you get to that point. But so now that we've gotten all of the discussion aside, you want to read some feedback from some people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you ahead of time to everybody that wrote in. You can always write in at daysoffuturecast.com/contact. I save those throughout the seasons that we do. So if you ever just come up and like, I need to tell Jeremy and Gary this thing about Wolverine's dick, just don't hesitate. Just do it immediately. Like get that Wolverine dick, get that Wolverine dick out of your system.
Cole Ross. KOLEROSS is my handle.
Absolutely, yeah. And I am at Gary Buh, GARYBUH,
which redirects to at Plumberduck at PLUMBERDUCK.
Our first feedback is from Alex. Hey guys, I have a story related to the Days of Future Past movie. When the movie came out in the theaters, I had a roommate who was a gay kid who grew up in rural Texas. Because of his age, X-Men is, of course, his jam. Due to the setbacks of his life, he'd become a pretty bad alcoholic over time. I'd watched him falling apart for a long time. It had gotten pretty bad, and lots of our friends were starting to just give up on him. Having seen Days of Future Past on my own, I thought it would really resonate with him. I had no idea just how right I'd be. After the movie, we walked into the parking lot, and the moment we got in the car and it was just the two of us, he burst into tears. Really opened up about how much he was hurting and how he was fucking up. He finally actually heard me about getting professional help, and that therapy helped him turn his life around. It's probably not that much of an exaggeration to say that the X-Men saved his life. Just because someone stumbles and loses their way, it doesn't mean that they're lost forever. Sometimes we all need a little help, and it's important to remember that. Don't give up hope, people. Love you guys, Alex.
That's a great story.
Yeah, I thought that was a really sweet story.
It's very sweet.
That's something that we, as the fact that we cover like a lot of shitty X-Men media on this podcast, we kind of forget that it has such an impact on, marginalized people. Whether or not the metaphor really like effectively works in 2018 or not, I think it still is very meaningful to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, these are actually good.
Mm-hmm.
I also love that as like that movie is having that kind of mini metaphor. Like there's the macro metaphor that X-Men has, about civil rights in general, but also within that they snuck in this alcoholism thing.
Yeah.
This whole thing with Charles is that, he is, it mirrors alcoholism, his addiction to that drug that deadens his mind, deadens his powers. Like, it's cool that could resonate in multiple ways for the same person.
I was getting really confused throughout that entire reading that I just did. For some reason, I was thinking Days of Future Past was X-Men 3. So a switch just flipped in my brain, and I was like, okay, this makes way more sense now.
Yeah, a little bit strange. All the alcoholic subtext of X3,
X-Men 3. Jesus.
Yeah, you can see in the smirk on Multiple Man's face. Hey, I'm a multiple man. Look at me. Yeah.
Are you caught up on Venture Brothers by chance?
I am not. I haven't watched any of the new season. I don't have cable, and I don't have the only streaming service I have is Amazon. So
gotcha.
I'm many years behind.
There's in this most recent season, there's very much a Multiple Man clone, and he's like a 1920s. Hey, guy, what you got going on over there? And it's just really fucking awesome.
I can't wait to actually watch that show. I fucking love that show.
We did a full rewatch, and I thought we had all of the episodes of the new season, but there was 2 episodes left to air, so we have 1 episode left to watch. We're just waiting for it to come out. This most recent season is some of the best work they've ever done. Like, there's some characters in there that they pull that are just so fantastic. That show is so fucking good on a rewatch, man. Like, you can catch so much more stuff.
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorites. I need to do that rewatch so I can get caught up. And I should just pirate the new episodes. I don't feel good about it, but I really want to watch the show. So yeah, so I guess I'll just do it.
I should just give you my Hulu account. I think they're all on Hulu.
Also, and there's some illegal way to do it. Like, I can't afford to have a bunch of streaming services right now, but I still would really like to see that show. So yeah, I gotta watch it. Moving on to our next question. Sam Bear, friend of the network, says, just so you guys feel better about it, around 2010, I would regularly marathon hours of anime in one sitting. I loved the Warren Ellis Castlevania cartoon. I watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes of the X-Men anime before, and I stopped because I was bored. So thank goodness. It's not just us.
It's not just us. That Castlevania cartoon is pretty weird, and I kind of have some small affection for it, but it's not great by any means.
Yeah.
So.
Me and Cole did an adaptation decay on it.
Did you? I must have missed that. Yeah.
He likes it a lot more than I do. I think that like Castlevania shouldn't have flashy action, and that stuff bummed me out. Mm-hmm. Like Castlevania, that's not what I go to Castlevania for, I guess. But I'm interested enough to know or to watch the second season when it comes out because I want to see if they get better at it. And it's also, I found this out afterwards, is that like, yes, Warren Ellis wrote it, but it's a script that's like been sitting in a drawer since 2004 or something like that. Like it wasn't modern Warren Ellis. It was old Warren Ellis who wrote it.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that might explain some of the clunk that happens in the storytelling in it. Cause the dialogue in general is like pretty good, but the actual story arc is not very satisfying if you actually look at what happens in the episode.
Not much is the answer to that. Not much happens.
Yeah. Well, that makes tons of sense sorry to cut you. That makes tons of sense for when he wrote it, because Warren Ellis was a big proponent when he first started writing comics, was a big decompression guy.
Yeah.
Like he has all these miniseries from the early and mid 2000s, all of which like I bought, that are 6-issue miniseries where 3.5 to 4 issues of stuff happens. And he only recently shook that off at all. Like he did a run of X-Men. He took over Astonishing X-Men, did this like comic called Ghost Boxes. Yep. It was the first arc. There. Have you read that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's so slow. Like it's like the slowest thing in the world, man. Like, it's like, how can you make this slow? The X-Men going investigating different dimensions in Wakanda or whatever. Like, and it's so fucking slow, So that's just kind of how he was, and this feels like a product of that.
Yeah, it's so weird because like I'll read something like Desolation Jones, and I feel like Desolation Jones is like such a head trippy kind of good thing, but not a lot happens in it.
Yeah.
And then you switch over to, Planetary, and like every volume of Planetary that you can buy is just like balls to the wall action or some cool story or something interesting. And especially that last volume, which took out a long time to come out, is just fucking like 100 miles an hour through the story. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. He's capable of pacing.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not always interested in it. And I have a suspicion that when he's pacing badly, he doesn't know how it ends. Because you look at Desolation Jones or you look at like Dr. Sleepless, both of which he never finished. And those are really slow paced. Yeah. You get this feeling of him just like, well, if I build enough kind of mood and atmosphere for this, maybe the ending will just kind of come to me, and then it doesn't.
Yep. Our next one comes from, thank you, Sam. Our next one comes from Lores. Great show. First podcast I started listening to. I'm sorry. You should go seek out other podcasts. there's stuff. Thank you for listening.
Y'all heard Serial? Yeah. Just...
2 questions. Number 1, which 90s cartoon Avenger would you have liked to join the X-Men, the animated series?
It make a lot of sense for like Scarlet Witch to join. She's got X-Men connections, and she's one of the more interesting people on that team.
I was trying to pick out my favorite Avenger, and I guess it's just Falcon by process of elimination. And I don't know. Everyone needs like somebody. You always need somebody to carry Wolverine around when people are flying. So Falcon would be useful.
Yeah. He could be one of the. He could take a shift, and it'd be a real slap in the face to Angel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like this guy does what you do through an invention.
Mm-hmm. Also, he has a pet one of him, so go take that, Angel.
This guy is exactly as good as you, and his pet is exactly as good as you. And go fuck yourself, Warren Worthington III. The
second question is: if you were making an X-Men animated series today, who would make up your team of 8? Boy, this is finding 8 of these is really hard, and I think I prepped you for this question like 8 months ago.
Yeah,
and I completely forgot to prep you again about it. I just want to see some smaller X-Men characters show up.
Mm-hmm.
I was really excited when like the New Mutants was getting cast, because I was a real big fan of that stuff, and I'm very curious to see how that movie is going to turn out. But I want to see. I would not necessarily want like a key team. I'd want like 3 or 4 people, and I'd want it to be set at a school where you would constantly be getting a stream of New Mutants showing back up for arcs and disappearing and showing back up again. Like that, I think that would be the best way to do it.
Yeah,
it's expensive to do that because that's voice acting and art and all that other stuff. But I'd want to see just a completely crazy cast of characters, and I just can't pick out 8 that I'd want to see over and over again.
It would be. It's always tempting with this kind of thing to do like greatest hits, and just do a real classic team. But I agree with you that like some of the new characters would be really cool to see, and have a couple of the old guard who act explicitly in teacher roles. Like I would want like Rogue and Gambit and 6 kids.
Sure.
They're off to, go teach them or go on a specific mission. They have some kind of specific corner of X-Men shit they're supposed to do. And just 2 adults, 2 classic team members, and explicitly in a teaching role where there's stakes. Like these kids are in danger. They maybe don't have everything figured out. We get to watch that happen. So I don't know which kids. I'm not modern on X-Men comics, unfortunately. So anything I name is going to be from like 2007, and it's going to be from like the Hellions miniseries and shit. Some of those people are still around, but I just don't, I haven't read enough modern X-Men comics. I keep meaning to. There's a problem with my Marvel Unlimited login, and I have the information to fix it, and I just keep forgetting to do it.
Yep.
I've been doing other stuff instead, but like I have the ability to get in there. I just haven't done it. And I keep thinking about, mostly I want to do it because I want to read some Spider-Man comics after playing Spider-Man. But I just haven't taken the plunge. I've been busy with other stuff. So maybe an unfortunate, kind of unsatisfying answer, but that's the answer I got.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Fletch, friend of the network. He says, just some thoughts about the recent season of Days of Future Cast. First, how the hell do neither of you know Zodiac? They featured in 2 really good limited series, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Secret Warriors. The one guy's name is Fury because he is indeed Nick's brother, Nick Fury's brother. I just never read those comics. I haven't read a lot of Nick Fury stuff. I know that the artist, like I know Jim Steranko is good and cool. I just have not read those things because as a kid, or when my comics time, I did like, why would I want to read about a spy when I can read about a mutant or read about a superhero? It just didn't make sense to me as a kid.
Yeah, and I've read, because I got real into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while, so when they did that comic book, kind of based on the TV characters, and I think they did a S.H.I.E.L.D. limited series too that I read before that. I read some of that, but I didn't get very far into it, so I just had no idea. So,
yeah. Continuing in the vein of Fuck, Marry, Kill, a question for you: which of these is the least of 3 evils? An arc about Madripoor, Ultron, or Logan weeping out? Betraying my own biases, I would legit say that there is only one good Ultron story, and it's the second Annihilation thing. So this is between Madripoor, where Wolverine goes to dress up in a white suit with a patch.
Yep.
Another one of Wolverine's dead ex-girlfriends in Japan. He keeps pulling them out. He's going to go like stare down the Silver Samurai and wear a kimono, or an Ultron story.
I'm going to Ultron.
Yeah, me too. I've read Ultron stories I've liked.
Yeah, and I know it's the least favorite Avengers movie out there, but I think that Ultron was a pretty good. I think that was a good representation of Ultron in that Civil War movie. So I'm I was into that. And the other two, I am so tired of. Like, give me a giant talking super smart robot any day. I don't care if Wolverine goes back to Japan at all.
I'll do you one better and say I don't want anything else with Wolverine's origins.
Sure.
Like, that's why Logan was so refreshing, because the first Wolverine movie that's not focused on his past. Like, I don't care about him being, and it's so weird because they only go to Japan for that. Like, that guy was a soldier in World War II. Like, I can see watching a war movie with Wolverine, but like, I am so sick of going to Japan and seeing his dead girlfriends.
Yep.
Like that is, I do not care. And I think the way of the samurai is boring. I don't like that as a code of ethics for a framework for a character, really. Mm-hmm. I've just seen it so many times. And then like I can, if you put a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you what happens in Madripoor. Like, they're so boring. Like, whenever in the 90s, like, we'd end up in Madripoor, like, I have no idea really what the story's about. Like, who are the major characters? And that I have no idea.
Some dude with a sword, I bet.
Some dude with a sword, some crime lord. It's just going to be, it's just not, it's not superhero shit. Like, neither of those are superhero genre things. Ultron, you can have a superhero story in an Ultron context.
But let me say this: if you had a Yakuza side quest where Patches/Logan showed up, I would be here for that shit immediately, because I think that would be really funny. And
that's what that one dude in Yakuza dresses like. He's essentially doing his Patches cosplay.
I've only played like the first bit of Yakuza 0, and then I didn't realize it had an old school save system, so I quit, and then I didn't have my save anymore because I never saved. So I was like, well, I'm gonna not play this again ever, probably.
And final question, finally, how deep do you plan to go into the Bad Avengers cartoon rabbit hole? If you thought that Avengers cartoon looked bad, you should try the second to most recent one which literally had flash objects dragging across the screen without animation. It was real bad when Hulk just had what I kept calling party faced every time he was leaping into battle as a single frame. I've seen other Avengers cartoons. I didn't see this one because I didn't see one that looked this bad. Like the Earth's Mightiest Hero one is not this bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what this is referring to.
I think that's the one that I've seen is the Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and it was actually pretty good. Like they go deep on some Avengers villains in a good way. As much as we love bad cartoons, like there's enough stuff without going to literal flash animation. I think I just think we could find different stuff to do that. Like by the time we run out of bad '90s stuff, we'll just go to the MCU or something. Like I'm not like if it's that terrible and that bad, like maybe it'll make a good one-off episode and say like, look how terrible this is, and then just go away from it. Like I don't think we need to cover it entirely.
There's Earth's Mightiest Heroes is one of them. There's one called Avengers Assemble as well. And those are the two. I'm not sure which one is the one that this is being referred to, but like, I also, I assume like, cause Fletch's kind of brand is wallowing
terrible
in
shit.
filth.
Yes.
Yeah. like just watching and playing and just throwing his time into it, just a big pit in his backyard. Like, he's like, oh, like I could play this terrible game, but what if I played all the versions for DS as well? It's kind of, and I'm not telling tales out of school. Like that's what he does, right? He was going to start a website about that essentially. I assume that he's seen the Avengers cartoon we watched, because that's pretty bad, man. Like if this is, I gotta search and see if I can find this one that's worse than that, because like that Avengers cartoon does not look good. If it can get worse, I do want to at least see a frame of it.
I'm trying to look through the animated series stuff to get to the most recent. Avengers Assemble is the one that I've seen the most recently, but I don't think that I did that one. I think I did I definitely did Earth's Mightiest Heroes, I think.
Yeah. That's the one that rings a bell to me. I watched an episode with MODOK in it, and it was fine. Like it was good and fine. So,
God.
Yeah, I'll have to look up and see this flash animation.
Give me
one.
MCU MODOK, Gary.
Yeah,
please.
Yeah, man.
Someday, please.
Well, they did Arnim Zola in Captain America too, so maybe.
Yeah. Next up, we have John at 99 Dexterity on Twitter, who says, hey there, folks. Really enjoyed the past season of the show, even though that Avengers cartoon was likely torture. Look forward to where you guys go from here. Also, what is a kappa is my current text tone and has produced many what the hell was that responses from people nearby. Keep up the good work and be well, friends. I always, that's not the first time that John has put a clip of the show as his text tone. which I find very amusing. As somebody that doesn't have a text tone, like I keep my shit on silent at all times. If I had to hear someone say "what is a kappa" every time someone got a text, I would literally just like burn his house down. Like, John, I'm sorry, you're a good dude, but I would burn your house down if I had to hear this all the time.
That's great. I love custom text stuff. The guy who Doug, who asked the Tiny Puppets guy, and he made that little video about my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get the Cormit saying Gary Butterfield as my text tone. I haven't done the work to do it yet, but
nice.
Yeah, I like that. I could definitely see that. So yeah, thank you, John. Moving on to Scott. Scott says, "Is it me or is Banshee basically Roger Daltrey?" Love the show. Roger Daltrey being the Who fella, the guy from the Who yells. He does look like him. Like he's got a very similar.
Oh yeah, he does.
Hairstyle and stuff.
Well, that's a guy that I did not know was still alive.
Yeah. Like several Who members dead, several still accounted for.
Yeah. Man, 74 years old and still rocking. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah, he totally looks like him. If you find him like straight up from the 60s, he has the exact haircut.
Yeah.
Of Banshee. And he dresses like him too. Here's a picture of him with like wings, like these strips under his arms. Like he looks like he's just going to fly up. Yeah, that's apt.
This is a good call, my man.
You cracked the code. You did it.
I think this might be our last one. Oh no, we got several more. I forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
This is Alex, friend of the show. This is in regard to Marvel Spider-Man, the video game episode that we did. Hello, my ex-dudes. At the time of my writing this, I still haven't played the game, but based on your description, the relationship between Spidey and MJ reminds me a lot of a canceled project I wrote for featuring a college-age Superman and Lois Lane. That's very exciting to me because it was probably the most dynamic I was proud of in that project. I think he said anyway. I hope they do what I did as these games go on and provide a villain that sees MJ as his arch enemy, because what he fears more than anything is exposure, and the only conflict they have with the superhero is that they keep preventing the assassination of a reporter. My version of Lex Luthor was an anonymous internet consultant with a talent for seeking out would-be mad scientists and pushing them towards supervillainy. He's getting a cut from their crimes for pointers on how to get their death rays and power suits up to scratch. Then Superman takes him off the board. Who will believe this mad scientist? But then Lois Lane says to Clark Kent over drinks, "Have you ever heard of Lex Luthor?" And everything was ruined. If I did this with Spider-Man, I might use Mysterio for this, or maybe the Master Planner. Maybe they already burned those in the first game. I don't know. Either way, how cool would it be to have one villain that desperately wants to take out MJ and more or less doesn't care about Spider-Man at all?
Yeah.
I think this is a good idea. I think this is a good idea for like a pretty significant side quest more than it is for like the entire game.
It could be a running side quest.
Because at the end of the day, like I like these alternate takes on superheroes a lot, but I just like the appeal of them I think would wear thin after you realize like, oh, nobody cares about Spider-Man and I'm Spider-Man and I'm playing this video game. Like, why am I here if nobody cares about me? Is this Spider Souls? Is that what's happening? Am I the chosen spider? Am I the chosen undead spider?
There's like ways to do the main character of the story is not the main character of the game thing. Like Witcher 3 does that really well. Right? Like with it being series story, but that's a totally different thing than this. Like that's not a superhero story, which does have this. I think that is a great idea for like a major side quest though.
Yeah.
Somebody takes an interest, and I love that empowers MJ in a way that's not superpower related. Like the power of information. Like she can actually ruin these people. I think that is a super cool idea. Mm-hmm. But in a game, it doesn't sound like a game about that. And also that would require probably playing as MJ a lot more than you do. And like, as much as I like those sequences in Spider-Man, we played the right amount of them.
Yep.
Like if you had switched that to like even a 40-60 split, that's too much of like only perfunctory stealth, instead of Spider-Man shit.
And a lot of times like research as a video game mechanic doesn't really like, it's just like kind of looking at stuff and having a character read something and then knowing something that you can then go use somewhere else. Like a lot of that is not very mechanically engaging.
Yeah. Like a lot of times they're not puzzles. It's just a task.
Exactly. Yeah. And and that's fine. Like that can be super interesting sometimes, but like a whole game I think would be too much. They have 3 DLCs for the Spider-Man game. So like, you could do something interesting. And I think it actually would be kind of,
a DLC is actually a great idea.
Yeah.
For this. Like as opposed to a side quest, like a short, like a 4-hour campaign about this, I think is a cool idea.
Mysterio accidentally gives Mary Jane Spider-Man's powers for 3 hours or something.
Yeah. Here we go.
Which I'm sure like that had to have happened in the comics at some point. Like I'm sure that's I'm sure that's canon or whatever.
Can I lay a piece of Mysterio related trivia on you?
Hit me.
The Spider-Man movies, the original, the Sam Raimi ones. One of the plans for the fourth one was to have all the Bruce Campbell, all the cameos that he had in those things, was to have him be Quentin Beck, be Mysterio. And those are all the same character, dressed up as different roles through the first three movies. And it was actually Mysterio like casing Spider-Man and learning about him.
That sounds baller. I
know. I wanted Bruce Campbell as Mysterio pretty badly. I think that sounds awesome.
I really want to go back to those Spider-Man movies at some point. Maybe we could do an episode on like the trilogy and not like get into the details of each one, but just kind of talk about them one day. I don't know, just kind of pitching that. But I really want a reason to go back and rewatch those, especially the third one, to see how bad it is, because I remember really enjoying those first two movies. Like they were fun and campy and weird in a good way. So I wonder how they hold up nowadays.
I even remember liking parts of the third one. Like the third one is about on par with X-Men 3 to me, where like there are things that I like about it. Like it's not it's not impossible to extract joy from it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. Fuck, marry, kill. Hawkeye's Arctic armor, a Pym particle, or Xavier's wheelchair.
Also, I just want to. I just want to comment that this dude's name is Capstiel is Canon 69, and Capstiel must be Captain America and Castiel from Supernatural, which would be a really weird combination to me. So, but it makes sense because Dean Winchester, the guy that plays Dean Winchester, was up for that role as Captain America at one point. So, one single Pym particle, I'm gonna have to
fuck a Pym particle.
I'm gonna fuck that Pym particle.
You're gonna fuck the Pym particle?
Yeah, hell yeah!
Pym particle, dog.
I mean, how are you gonna fuck a wheelchair?
I can figure that out. Like pretty much any object, I think you could fuck. Like if fucking just means rubbing on an orgasm, until you orgasm. It's a nice thing about external genitalia,
The ironic thing is, with the way Pym particles work, I could be running them over my genitalia all the time and just not know about it.
I could literally have them in and out of me constantly. Like they could be fucking me.
Pym particles or germs is what we have to decide which one sounded.
And then you get germs dressing up as Pym particles or lying and saying they're Pym particles. It's this whole thing. Tricky. I think I would kill Hawkeye's Arctic armor because that's ugly and it's got to go.
Such different opinions of this. Okay, go ahead.
It's got to go. And then I think I would I'd marry the Pym particle because maybe I'd then get cool Pym powers. Just from and then I would fuck the wheelchair.
See, I'm gonna have to marry Hawkeye's Arctic armor because it looks too good. I want to be that. And like I said, I'm gonna fuck that Pym particle. I want to see what that's like once. Yeah. And then I'm gonna have to kill Xavier's wheelchair, like all various versions of floating or otherwise.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If you can't walk, you can't walk. Stop pretending.
Have you seen that there's a Dark Souls lore video? It's like an animated goof thing that came out years and years ago, and there's a moment in it where they say, "What's the matter, Seath? You sad because you ain't got no scales?" Yeah. I'm just picturing, "What's the matter, Xavier? Are you sad because you ain't got no wheels?"
Yeah, that's very good.
So thank you, Capstiel is Canon, for that. Up next is Not a Skrull, who sent us, what's your favorite Skrull plotline in Marvel, and do you think Secret Wars is going to be the next big Infinity War style event in the MCU? Man, I'm having a hard time coming up with like a Skrull plotline that's not Runaways stuff, which might be considered a spoiler if you haven't actually read Runaways, but that's probably like the most excited I've been to see a Skrull in my life.
Yeah, that's a good one. Young Avengers, like finding out that that's not really a Skrull story, but like the Young Avengers Skrull is good. I think Secret Invasion is pretty good. Like for big Marvel events, I had fun reading that. I liked that just fine. I think that Who Can You Trust is interesting. It didn't, that whole He Loves You shit got kind of dumb during it. But like classic Skrull, like with the Skrulls, like I'm here for the shapeshifter shit. I am less here for the intergalactic war between them and the Kree. Like I don't think that's particularly cool. It makes me very worried about Captain Marvel because I don't care about the Kree and I don't care about the Skrulls very much as a space force. I think the Skrulls are interesting as shapeshifters.
Again, it's going to be really weird because the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were all about the Kree and take place in the future where the Kree has basically blown up Earth and enslaved the human race. And I just like that shit is canon according to the that's in the MCU. So like what the fuck?
So weird.
It's so fucking weird, man.
The execution of it is. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say I don't think that the Secret Wars is going to be the next MCU thing.
No. That one's easy. I think that's too dumb. like the Beyonder and like
Yeah.
pitting everyone against each other. I think that's too much. I don't think they'll go
CGI
that big.
chessboards.
Yeah, they're not going to go that big. The best Skrull, it's not the best Skrull plot, but the best Skrull setup is the Skrull Kill Crew, which is not a good comic, I think. But the setup of it is very funny, is that one of the Skrulls, the original one that went to Earth, turned into a cow and forgot about it, and everyone who ate the tainted Skrull beef from that cow turned into a Skrull, and it's these two idiots hunting them down.
That's
which
fucking
I think is
hilarious.
It's a great premise, but it's Grant Morrison and Mark Millar working together, and it's mostly just dumb bad Mark Millar. And I just feel like Grant Morrison came up with that original idea, and that's it.
And that was yeah. I like the concept of being a cow was so great that the Skrull forgot that he was a Skrull.
Yep.
Man, I'm just gonna sit here and eat and shit in this yard all day. That's
good.
Great.
It was good. As far as like the next big event thing, I really want the next big bad for the MCU to be Galactus. Like pretty badly.
If they bring, because that's the perfect way to bring the Fantastic Four in. Like I would love to see a proper treatment of Silver Surfer if we could pull that off.
Yep.
Like a modern take on that where he doesn't necessarily have a surfboard.
Yeah.
Would be pretty legit.
Yeah, he has a scooter. He has one of those rentable roller.
He's got a hover bike or whatever, or hoverboard from 4 years ago or whatever. He's got one of those.
Those things. Just because
he's got a cosmic Segway is what he's got.
What's interesting about like the Thanos as the big, the Infinity War being the big capper to this thing is like they can't go down from that. Like the scale has to be big, and the MCU doesn't have that many bads quite that big. Galactus is one of the few ones. Secret Wars would also be that big, but it's too dumb. So there's not a lot of places to go with it. It's fine because they're going to get 10 years of movies until they get to it. If they take the same pace, but I don't think there's tons of places to go with it.
I don't either, and I don't really want to see brother versus brother, superhero versus superhero. Like we did a little bit of that in Civil War, and it always just turns out like we're gonna have one big fight where everybody almost uses their powers at full blast, but holds back at the last minute because they're all heroes. And I don't need like a trilogy of that.
No trilogy. Like it's awesome in Civil War, and I like Hulk versus Thor and Thor 3. I like that kind of gladiatorial stuff. We've just done it before, and I don't think it can support an entire movie.
Do you think Doctor Doom and Galactus would work? Like, do you think Doctor Doom would work with Galactus some way? Like, if they set that up over a couple of movies? I think that would be kind of interesting.
I thought about that, but Doctor Doom is like a Loki level villain, and they've already done kind of like I think they even need to go bigger because it has to be something everyone can team up against. Everyone teams up against Doctor Doom, he's going to go down. I think.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying. Like Loki went down,
putting them together. Yeah, he could end up being like used by him the same way
that Loki was used by Thanos. Yeah, that's kind of what I was going with.
Yeah, that would definitely work.
The question I had there is like, how arrogant is Doctor Doom to not want to work with Galactus at one point? Of like, Doom will not take take orders from you or whatever.
He would think he was controlling Galactus. Would be the way you do it. It would be his downfall is that he thinks he's in control and he's not. That could be a great moment if they got a good good performance for whoever ends up playing Doctor Doom.
The real bummer about all of this conglomeration of media is that the Noah. Is it Noah Fawley? I think is the guy's name. The dude that does Fargo and the Legion series on FX. Mm-hmm. He was in the works of doing just a straight up Doom movie, like a Doctor Doom movie, and like an adult, like not an adult, but like a rated R, like mature version of that character, like doing some crazy shit. Seems really super interesting to me.
That's interesting to me. Yeah. Apparently, like him, Doctor Doom is the kind of bright spot from the new shitty Fantastic Four movie because he's played as a horror movie character. Have we talked about that?
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to. I have very specific memories of the Fantastic Four movie, and then I just got drunk during it, so I don't remember the end.
So you mean version I haven't seen it, but I saw a thing online that was like this could have been good, but the tone was all over the place. Here's like 3 minutes from it that are actually really brilliant, and they just didn't fully commit to it. But doing Doctor Doom as taking like a horror angle of that, it's one of the reasons why I'm kind of excited about that New Mutants movie. Even though it's it's in production hell and shit like that, but it is taking like a horror hybrid. And I think one of the things that like Marvel movies can do to keep things fresh after all this is do more hybridizations. Like I would consider Thor 3 to be a comedy more than anything else, do more of these things where it's not just a straight up superhero movie. It's like Cap 2. It's a superhero spy movie. This is a superhero buddy comedy. This is a superhero horror movie. Like do more things like that. Yep. I think it's a cool way to keep it fresh.
The only specific memory I really have of that Fantastic Four movie is that Reed Richards built a teleportation device out of a literal stack of Nintendo 64s.
Oh, cool.
that all had translucent cases for some reason. Like there was just like 6 of them in a stack. I have a screenshot of that somewhere. I'll try to find it for you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Moving on. Thrunza, somebody who has been part of the network for a really long time. I've never really known how to pronounce this. I see this word all the time. Thrun DSA.
I'm pretty sure his real name is David. So if you just want to, if you want to go David,
says the Avengers are over. You did it. If you're able to go back and make one character constantly good throughout the season, who would it be? Why would it be Hawkeye? And what would his new armor be? Got to sell them toys.
I would go back and do Wonder Man because I think that. I don't really care about the Wonder Man character. I just think that for someone who was in the intro as much as he just got like kind of the short end of the straw or stick or whatever. And I want to see like an interesting take on that dude. I don't know that any of the other ones could necessarily be interesting as they were. So unless it's Hawkeye, outside of Hawkeye, who is, probably the star of that for whatever reason.
Yeah. Cause they're trying to make a new Wolverine.
It's Hawkeye and that cop that got squirted on.
Yes.
It's those 2 characters.
And I, of course, wish Hank Pym had been consistently good. Mostly just for vindication. So I could have been like, see?
Finally, my friend of the network, she has a web marry arrest instead of a fuck marry kill. Harry Osborn, Philip Chang, and Felicia Hardy. I don't remember who Philip Chang is.
I'm gonna look it up. It's it's a Spider-Man character, but I have not read enough Spider-Man comics. So I think it's the guy who is it? No, it's not him. Let me see. Let's find out.
Apparently, he was in the PS4 game. So, whoops.
And there are a bunch of like.
Oh, he's the kid that you help out to fix all the students.
Oh, the guy who sends you on the fetch quest where you don't have a marker.
Yeah.
Well, that guy gets arrested because I hated those. I don't care about architecture and stuff. Like the as much as I liked being in New York as an abstract in that game, I didn't. It wasn't like going to these places where they were like they would say like, hey, this is near the college, and like I didn't really know where the college was. I kind of knew, but I didn't really get a good like mental map. Of it in a like on the ground sense. So I didn't really like those missions. I thought those they were all right. So I got to arrest that guy. Or maybe web him like a little bit gentler. But nothing, and definitely not going to marry him.
No, I would. I mean, I'm assuming that this is all the video game stuff. So I'm going to have to marry Harry Osborn because that dude. For the inheritance, for the weird genetic diseases our kids will have, and that will continue on with the Marvel universe. Like we have to have somebody in our stead. And also because like a little bit of light in that dude's life, like not to go all spoiler territory, but and then I guess I would web Philip Chang and arrest Felicia Hardy because as much as I like the Black Cat, all she did was steal shit throughout the game. So she
does steal stuff, but I would still marry her. Yeah, because
I was 13 and she had boobies.
It was kind of exciting to be like have this life of crime. Like I'm not. That's not very much like me. But if I was presented with the opportunity, like, hey, let's go. Hey, Gary Butterfield, professional podcaster, do you want to, instead of doing that, go and like become a jewel thief with me, the Black Cat? I'd be like, well, yes.
Sure, absolutely. Sounds fun.
Like, okay, yeah, all right. And she'd be like, well, we have to get married first. And I'd be like, well, that's a little weird, but okay, like, and then she'd put the ring, and then we'd get married, then we go do crimes. That sounds kind of appealing to me. And this ends with me arresting Harry Osborn, which he's going to turn to a Venom, and it just feels like sensible to arrest him.
Yeah. Can I read you 3 sentences from the Wikipedia about Philip Chang?
Yeah. Please do.
His uncle and aunt, who he lived with in America, owned a Chinese restaurant called the Lotus, and he would work there after school. Betty Brant once dragged Peter Parker to the Lotus restaurant, where they spotted Chang. Chang recognized Parker from the university and apologized for almost hitting him. the villain White Dragon showed up and wanted Jane to join the Dragon Lords. Otherwise, Spider-Man's life was forfeit. Just a real
The Dragon Lords.
It's just a real escalation. Like, we're at lunch, and I'm real sorry for hitting you. By the way, these are the Dragon Lords, and this is White Dragon, which is probably.
Excuse me, there are Dragon Lords in play. Like, I had no idea.
I thought you were bringing over the orange chicken, but nope, this is the White Dragon. Okay, my bad.
That's great. You can get the orange chicken or the white dragon. That's the,
Definitely go for the White Dragon, man.
Yeah.
They have to ID you for that shit. It has to be better.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks everybody.
Yeah,
for
thank
writing
you.
in. If you, as always, if you have other comments, if we missed your comment, or if you have things occur to you, hit us up at daysoffuturecast.com/contact.
Yep. I save those throughout, so never hesitate. If you have anything on your mind, just go ahead and send that to me, and I'll save it. Make sure we read it. You can also hit us on Twitter at DOFC Podcast or at DOFC Cast, I think. Or you can just talk to me directly at JG Greer.
Mm-hmm. And you can find me on Twitter at GaryBuh, GaryBuh. And hit us up and ask us on shit and generally participate.
Yeah, and if you want to support the show directly, share it with your friends, leave iTunes reviews, and if you want to support it even more, go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. You can give a couple of bucks a month to get some really cool stuff and make a bunch of cool people record a bunch of podcasts. So that's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a good, fun time. You can also rate and review the show.
Yep. And
listen to other shows on the network, which we appreciate.
And just a reminder, in the next episode, we'll start covering the Incredible Hulk series from the early 90s, which, as of this recording, is hard to find to legally own, but you can kind of find it through the dark web.
Yes, tore yourself some dark torrents.
Yes, go to foxnews.com/darkweb/Incredible Hulk, and you will find exactly what you're looking for, whatever that may be. And until then, have fun. See you next time.
I hope that turns out to be a website.
Jesus Christ. Right? Like going to videos.com.